Hello everyone. In this video we'll be discussing about thread communication. So before discussing about thread communication, which are the methods which are present in a thread class, we'll be discussing here. And thread class belongs to java.lang package. So if you want to access the thread class, we need to import java.lang package to your Java program. To create a thread, there are various forms. Already we discussed about these forms. So here there are three forms. The first form is we are creating a thread T1 and we are not attaching it to any object. In the second form, we are creating a thread T2 and we are attaching it to the object obj. And we are in the third form, we are creating a thread T3 and we are attaching it to the object obj and we are specifying the name of the thread too. To know which thread is currently running in your Java program, we have a method, static method called as current thread. So which returns the current thread which is running in your Java program. And since it is a static method, we use a class name to invoke that particular method. To start a thread, we have a built-in method called as start method, which is present in a thread class. And to stop execution of your thread for a specified amount of time, we have a sleep method that is again a static method. So it is invoked by using the class name and which accepts a parameter that is integer value in terms of milliseconds. Suppose if you specify the value as 100, your thread sleeps for 100 milliseconds of time, or your thread execution stops for 100 milliseconds of time. To get a name of a thread, we have a method called as getName method, which returns the name of the present thread. To set a name to the thread, it can be done in two ways. While creating an object itself or while creating a thread itself, we can specify a name, or else by using the setName method, we can set the name to the thread. To get the priority of a thread, so we have a method called as getPriority method. So that getPriority method is going to give what is the priority of a thread. So regarding these priorities, we'll be discussing further in the further videos. To set the priority to the thread, we have a method called as setPriority method, which takes integer number as a parameter, which is a priority of that particular thread. To check whether the thread is alive or dead, we have a method called as isAlive method, which is going to return a boolean value, whether it is true or false. If it is true, the thread is alive. If it is false, then the thread is dead. To wait till the thread dies, we have a method called as join method. So these are the methods which are present in a thread class. Now let us discuss about the thread communication. Before discussing about the thread communication, so why we need the communication between the threads? To exchange the data between the threads, the communication between the threads is possible. So let us see this program, how the communication happens. Before discussing about this program, let me explain. I'm creating two threads. One is producer thread, other one is consumer thread. Consumer thread waits for a producer thread to produce the data. Once the producer thread produces the data, consumer thread is going to use that data or it is going to print that data. So that is a procedure here. For this approach, I am writing a program. I'm writing a class called as producer class, so which implements from a runnable interface. Here I am creating two instance variable. One is a string buffer object which is used to store the data, which I am going to append it to it. And other one is data produce over, which is a boolean variable. I'm setting that variable as false. So the purpose of using the data produce over the boolean variable is once the data production is over, so I'm going to set that variable to true. So in the constructor of the producer class, I'm allocating a memory to the string buffer object. In the run method, I'm using the for loop. I'm running from 1 to 10 and I'm appending the I values to the string buffer object. That means 1 followed by colon, 2 followed by colon, 3 followed by colon. In the same way, I'm appending all the numbers to the string buffer object. So and also I'm printing that appending statement. So inside the for loop. So once the for loop ends, I'm setting the data production over to true. In the consumer class or in the consumer thread, what I am doing, so I'm extending the thread class, or it can also implement from the runnable interface. It's left to us. So I'm declaring one instance variable of a producer type, and I'm in the constructor of consumer. I'm assigning this producer variable with an object of a producer class. In the run method, I'm just checking whether the data production over variable is set to true or not. If it is not set to true, thread is going to sleep for 10 milliseconds of time, again it is going to go back to the while loop and check whether the data production over is set to true or not. If it is set to true, it comes out of the while loop and it is going to print the data which is produced in the string buffer object, or which is appended to the string buffer object in the producer thread. So here I am creating two objects in the main method. One is producer object, that is obj1, and other one is consumer object. The consumer object, while creating the consumer object, so I am taking the object of producer class as a parameter here to the consumer constructor, just because I am accessing the variables which are present in the producer class. So I need the producer object here. I'm creating two threads, thread 1, that is T1 and T2. So T1 is attached with object 1, which belongs to the producer class, and T2 is attached with object 2, which belongs to the consumer class. You can start any thread first. Since I am starting thread 2, that is consumer thread is started. So once the consumer thread is started, it goes to the run method. In the run method, it is going to check whether the data production over is set to true or not. Since it is not set to true, it goes for a sleep mode for 10 milliseconds of time. Meanwhile, simultaneous execution of thread 1, that is producer thread, also happens. Producer thread goes to the run method and it enters into the for loop. In the for loop, it is going to append I value to the string buffer object and sleep for a while, and then it prints appending. So until the for loop is completed, it keep on performing the same operation. Once the for loop is done, data produce over variable will be set to true. Once the data produce over variable is set to true, in the consumer object, it checks in the while loop, in the consumer thread, it checks in the while loop whether the data produced over is set to true or not. If it is set to true, it is going to print whatever the data which is produced and appended to the string buffer object in the producer thread. Let us see the output of this program. See, in the for loop, it is going to print appending for 10 times. Once the appending is done, so the string buffer object is printed in the consumer thread. So this is how it works. And the main drawback of this program is, you can observe here, while loop checks for data produced over variable and then sleeps for 10 milliseconds of time. So once it will check data produced over is true or false, let us assume that it is false for a while. So as soon as the consumer thread enters into the sleep mode, immediately the data production over variable will be set to true. That means production is done. So immediately, if it is set to true, we need to wait till it completes its sleep period to check whether the data produced over is true or not. That means after the first millisecond, if the data produced over is set to true, we need to wait for another 9 milliseconds of time. That consumer thread will come back to the while loop. Again, it will check whether the data produced over is true or not. That means we are wasting 9 milliseconds of time, so in a sleep mode itself. This drawback can be eliminated by using some of the built-in methods which are present in object class of java.lang package. Which are the built-in methods which are present in the object class of java.lang package are a notify method. This notify method releases the object and notifies the waiting thread saying that the object is available. So once it notifies, so the waiting thread can take over and print or access the data which is produced in the producer class or producer thread. So notify all, it notifies all the waiting threads, where notify notifies only one waiting thread. So wait method, it is going to wait till the object is released and it is notified by a notify or notify all method. So other thing is, so these methods notify all and wait should be used inside the synchronized block only. Let us see this with programming example. The previous drawback which was there in the previous program can be eliminated by using these three methods which are present in an object class. Same program, I am writing the synchronized block in the run method of producer class. Inside the synchronized block, I am not doing anything and I am not using that boolean variable, data production over variable, whether it is set to true or not, I am not using it. Just I am using string buffer.notify. So that means once the string buffer object is appended or the production is done, it notifies the waiting thread. The waiting thread is consumer thread here. What consumer thread is going to do, in the consumer thread I am not writing any sleep statement or sleep method or something. Here I am writing wait method. So that means string buffer dot wait. Since string buffer is a variable of a producer class, I am using the object of producer class prod dot sb dot wait. So it waits for a string buffer object to be released. So once the production of the data is done, sb.notify is going to release the thread, which is release the object which is held by a thread T1 or the producer thread. So once it is released, it notifies the wait method or the thread consumer thread saying that the object SB has been released. So once the object is released, it is going to the consumer thread is going to end its waiting period, and it comes to the uh, next statement and prints the produced data here. Let us see the output of this program. The output is same, but the waiting period, that 9 milliseconds or 10 milliseconds of time which we were wasting in the previous program, so that in the sleep mode of the consumer thread will be avoided here. So that's the advantage of using notify method as well as the wait method here. So thank you all. Thank you for watching this video.